Hi everybody. When I was called for this conference, I was reading the rules, and the most interesting one was that don't read, don't write your paper, but more interestingly, don't ramble, because if you're going to ramble, then you rather read. And that got me a bit nervous because I've all my life spoken from the heart. It's a stream of consciousness conversation. It's usually a dialogue. So here I am, and I'm going to tell you just a few stories which might seem like rambling, but at a deeper level, I think they're all connected, and I'm inspired by Anjali, by Jyoti, by this wonderful presentation. I wanted to speak about questioning because I think it has played a very big role in my life, and I'm sure many of you are here wherever you are because of the process of questioning that you've done right from your childhood. Questioning, of course, I mean, I'm speaking to converts, I'm speaking to those who are interested in education, who sort of know that the prerequisite to learning is questioning. So I don't need to talk about really the importance of questioning. But I also realize over the years that it is a privilege to have that space in one's childhood to be able to question, something I took it for granted. And when you grow up and you are brought up in a certain environment, you don't really think it's different till you sort of look back many years later and you look around and you realize that, my God, this is not something that everybody has. And you realize how privileged you are. My father a painter, mother a writer. I think I grew up in a space, but more importantly, more than all the exposure of art and books and everything else, which of course has played a big role in my life, but the space to question, to ask 100 things, not to ever feel that the questions are stupid or uninteresting, or that it is offending the elders, or that it's against our tradition, or it's meaningless, or that we are too busy to answer. And I think that has made that shift. Today, if all of us question or want certain questions to be raised, whether it is a civil society agitation, whether it is a bill, whether it is a law, whether something happens on the road, the reason we are able to question is that in our formative years, we had that space to question, something I realized I had taken for granted. When I was hearing Jyoti talk about dreams, when I would do talks in colleges, I would often say that, follow your dream, follow your heart. Often people would say, what's the message that you give to the young people? And I would say the same thing. I said, as Anjali also said, that if your work, if your passion becomes your work, if what you love doing becomes your career, then it's so much easier, it's so much nicer, life is so much happier. Till one day, in one of my talks, a young girl got up and said, but I don't know what I love doing. I don't know what I'm passionate about. And that got me thinking. That got me to realize that something that I had taken for granted, maybe I'd become sort of, not sensitive to the fact that when I said that I don't really have a profession, I don't really have a career, all these things are my interest, I could get away with it. But what does it really mean to have a passion? How many young people really know what their heart tells you? And probably they don't, because of the presentation we saw, where education just makes you do things that you probably don't really experience. And when you have divergent experiences, one is your experience and one is what you've studied, and when you see the discrepancy and no one to ask, what do? I see a lot of young people who are just lost, who are confused, and it's okay to be confused. When I say it's okay to be confused, because if you're wandering, you're not necessarily lost. There are parents and teachers, you say, what do you mean? You mean to say that they shouldn't be confident? They shouldn't know their minds? But to know your mind for the sake of knowing your mind, or because everybody seems to know their mind, or because that's the right thing to do, is that what really is going to make you enjoy your journey? Or to say that, yes, I'm confused, I don't quite know, yes, I love more than 3 things, I don't know what I really want to be. Even at whatever 40 plus and quite a few pluses, if I don't know what I really want to be or what is my career, it's okay to feel that way. But nowhere in our education system, nowhere even in our familial backgrounds, do we really have that space. Do we really feel safe questioning? And that I have seen across board. In my social work days, I was working in a slum, and we used to have a great time. We used to do all these wonderful creative activities. I was very idealistic. I was doing my course. Although I did realize that a social work degree doesn't make you a better or worse social worker, but it does expose you to many different realities that one's own little world may not. After about 6 months of having fun, and I thought, there's this great time that I'm giving to these young girls. They were expressing themselves, we were drawing, we were dancing, we were singing, we were going out. In one of the classes when I came to the Basti, one of the girls said that, why don't you teach us how to read and write? This is not what we really want to do. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. But the fact that they felt safe to question, maybe that question had come to their mind much before, and they probably thought that how could I say that? And here I was with my MSW degree, thinking I knew what's best for these girls, and to realize that maybe I wasn't really doing what they really wanted to do. Now I'm a mother of a 1-year-old, and I think having worked in the field of education, having worked in an organization that really dedicated itself to making learning and teaching more fun, I'm also questioning everything that I've learned. There's a lot of unlearning that one needs to do. While reading something about children and how much they grasp, and he's just a year old, barely speaks a few words, I was reading something where it said that there was an experiment conducted where they were observing mothers and children. So here was a mother, she went out to the garden, and every morning she would pick up these lovely flowers and bring it to the child and show him the flowers and say, aren't they beautiful? And she would talk to him about it and tell him the colors and all of that. She would do this every day, go to the garden, bring the flowers. When they observed and they made this experiment, and they found out that somewhere the child was processing it as that my mother doesn't like the grass. She only likes the flowers. And that was kind of interesting. I don't think the mother intended to dislike the grass. But if that child could speak, probably the child would question and say, but why didn't you bring the grass? And maybe that would give the mother the opportunity to say, well, the grass is lovely too. It's nice and soft and we can walk on it. Okay, tomorrow let's bring the grass. So, I mean, there are so many things. We don't even know what actually that means a child is imbibing. What is the sponge soaking in? What is it that we are really even teaching? Because sometimes when you're questioning, you find the answers for something else along the way. You may not even be looking for the answers for that, but you actually do chance upon it. When I sit with my child and tell him a story from a book, and it's the same page, there's a little book called Visit to the Zoo. It has about 6 animals on it, and he keeps pointing to the animals like 100 times over. And now that I was going to talk about questioning, last few days I've been thinking that yes, questioning is important, but what does it mean to this 1-year-old child? He is questioning me, he is asking me to show me the bear 10 times. Am I going to get bored? Isn't that the way a child learns? The 11th time and the 12th time, he is going to know that's the bear. All this is not happening consciously, and that's so beautiful. The fact that one is, in some ways, being a mother, one is really observing evolution. One is seeing how we all grew up. We have, in many ways, become a little stilted. We have stopped questioning many things. We think it's others' job to probably question. We've become more followers. We want to play safe. We think, would it really be silly if I asked this, if I said this? There is a lot of hesitation. Often in the talks I do, especially with young people, initially there's a lot of hesitation to ask. But when you actually give that safe space, it just never stops. And many of the questions are around the fact that this is how I feel, but if others don't, what should I do? And I think we are losing those open spaces, because somewhere that space is not at home, it's not in the school. And there is no third space. There isn't that space where people could just talk and express themselves and have a dialogue, and they would meet different people, there would be interdisciplinary interactions. Those spaces are really vanishing soon. When my father would talk about his days in Bombay, and he would say that there would be poets and artists and musicians and dancers, and they would all interact, they would read poetry, they would criticize each other's work. It was seen as a constructive activity. It was an informal space that provided a different kind of growth. And I often miss that. I mean, even in my growing up years, I remember doing street theatre, interacting with different people, or doing various different forums, interacting with people. But I see that it's increasingly decreasing. That sense of open space where you can just interact about issues that you may not have complete clarity. And today with the kind of media, today with the kind of black and white conversations that we have, that are you for this or are you against this? There is no nuanced dialogue, there is no nuanced conversation, there is no desire to go into depths of things, and if there is, then you are probably, overdoing it. It's no point. Tell me what's your view, what's your soundbite, tell me in 2 sentences what you think about this. So all of this is somewhere, like he says in the presentation, standardizing things, it's homogenizing things. And how do we all, I think everyone's struggle is to stand out, to be different, and yet be part of it. And yet be part so that you're not too different to be sort of seen as a sore thumb. So you want to belong, all of us want to belong, and at the same time stand apart. And this process of balancing it is not something that you can do a 1 spoon of this and another spoon of that. It is something that you internalize, that happens through the journey and your own experiences. I remember going to Rishi Valley, a wonderful boarding school in the south. I took a year off after my BA when I was studying geography because I had a wonderful teacher. I think teachers do make a huge, huge impact on even what you love and what you don't. And after my BA in geography, I stopped loving the subject. I wanted to do something else. I didn't know what I wanted to do. Thankfully, my parents, when I said that I wanted to take a year off, my parents were very welcoming of that, and they said, yes, take a year off, travel, decide what you want to do. A lot of the others, whether friends, parents, whether my own teachers, my own friends, they said, you're going to waste a year. The way we have defined something being a waste or something being successful, it's such a narrow definition that I was also a little worried. I was like, am I really wasting a year? But somewhere I felt that I've just been studying and getting over one class to the other without really giving it a thought. I was a reasonably good student, so my parents said that do an MA. But I said, okay, fine, that's one thing you've asked me to do, never any pressures on coming first or doing well and all of that. So I will do a master's, but at least let me figure out what I want to do my master's in. So in that year, I taught at Rishi Valley. Well, there was no syllabus till the 8th, so teachers didn't have to teach to finish a syllabus. Children didn't have to study to sort of get marks because there were no marks. And I think those 4 months that I taught there, I realized what the space to question can actually do. My own brother who studied there, when he was interviewed, they asked him, why are plants green? Why is the leaf green? Probably they expected an answer saying that it has chlorophyll. He was supposed to know. He was 10 years old. It was part of his textbook. And he said, because it's nature. And they said, that's a nice answer. And he was admitted to the school. So this whole thing of lateral thinking that Edward de Bono talks about, and it was, we also heard about it, that lateral thinking is something that's so being killed. And I think primarily because we are not being allowed to question. Even in our own families, when you question the elders, especially in the traditional Indian mode, and all of us are conditioned in varying degrees in that to question, is you want to be accepted. You want to be accepted by your parents, you want to be accepted by your family, by your friends, by your peers, by your teachers. You are constantly trying to fit in. So how does one feel safe to question? Even among friends, I don't think the kind of interactions that I watch, that I see, that the trend that has changed, children or young people do not feel safe to question. When I was young, I remember my father being a painter. If I would paint a sun that was green, or a mountain that was blue, or a fish that was orange, it was okay. But when I go to schools, and I was, in fact, recently on a flight, there was a mother and child, and she was painting something, and they were a little aware that being an actor, I think, that I was sitting there, and the child had painted the sun green, and I remembered my story, and she said, oh, come on, you know that the sun isn't green. And she kind of looked at me like, my child isn't such a dud. He knows it. I mean, he's just, being a little different right now. She was almost embarrassed. We are so embarrassed by what our children will do or not do. And I had a little chat with the mother later, and really that space that that's why I feel so privileged to have that space where the sun could be green, because sooner or later we are going to know that the sun is yellow and orange and it doesn't really set and it doesn't really rise and all of that. But if the child wants to ask that why is the night dark or where does the sun go, I think it is such a wonderful journey, not just for the child but for ourselves. We all know that curiosity it's the curious mind which is the prerequisite to knowledge. But it's not just curiosity that questioning does. I think it also affirms your own beliefs. It gives you attention. I think everybody likes to be loved. Everybody likes attention. When you question and there is an engagement, when there is a dialogue, when somebody engages with an answer and tells you whether they know or they don't know is immaterial. But the fact that it engages is important. When I did my first film, Firak, a close friend of mine who's a director, told me that, lots of times there will be when your crew asks you something or your cast asks you, and you may not know the answer. So just look confident and say, yeah, I'll deal with it. I'll get back to you with it. Because they are looking at you as the leader. They are looking at you for those answers. They want to feel that you are confident. And I said, no, but I'm not going to do that. If I don't know an answer, I don't know an answer. We'll find it together. And sometimes it's tough because people then do not think of you as someone who knows what they're doing. All of that has been pushed so deep into us that we are almost scared not to sound confident, not to be confident. To be nervous is seen a sign of weakness. To involve, to collaborate, to ask questions to a question is seen that you do not know yourself or you do not know your mind. I've so many times heard that, don't you know your mind? Don't you know what you're doing? So it's okay, I think, not to know. It's okay to find it together. And many times during my shoot, there were times when I didn't know. I didn't know even the difference between, say, a rifle and a gun, and it was part of a scene, and part of a very emotional scene. My art director came and said that, so do we get this rifle or whatever the other word, there was another word for gun. And I said that, I really don't know the difference of it, but can we just finish this very emotional scene now? So there are, I think, what I have learned through my work with children, with teachers, with young people, with my own self, with my family, with my own discomforts, with my own vulnerabilities, is that if we can continue questioning, I think we can continue learning. Thank you.